Hello. Hello. Man, the way I say hello, self-conscious. I'm always self-conscious about starting my videos. I wanted to do a quick verbal processing video, but the thing is, there's another video that I want to spend my time working on tonight, and so I don't want to spend any time editing or working on publishing this video, so this might not come out for a few days or a week, or it might never come out, I don't know. But I just kind of have a lot of energy right now because the last day or two has been pretty eventful for me. Of course, my life is always just like constantly eventful. I definitely keep myself busy. But the significance of what happened in the last few days is that I've been wrestling the last year and a half, as you might know if you've watched some of my videos before this, but I've been wrestling a lot with trying to figure out how to be friends with my Christian friends in a way that doesn't clash. Man, it's so weird because it's like I can't pinpoint specific times because what I'm learning is such a like continuous journey. But for a while, like from the very, very beginning of my time in college, I kind of had this fundamental realization that as human beings, empathy and listening and taking care of each other tends to be a lot more important to us than whether our opinions about the world are correct or incorrect. And recently, that's been an interesting thing for me to think about because leaving Christianity in a lot of ways is just more of an opinion of, or like it's a claim about, it's a fact-based claim. It's not specifically like an emotional experience. So I'm not explaining this very well. I was having a hard time understanding how to relate to my friends. My initial way of responding to that was kind of feeling hopeless and generally being a bit stressed out because I didn't have anybody to like feel really safe with at first, since I didn't know how to be safe around my friends. And that wasn't, like looking at it now, it's like, and even then to a degree I think I kind of knew this, but it wasn't really their fault or my fault. It's just the nature of the situation that suddenly something that had been one way for such a long time was suddenly a different way. And in a relationship that causes this like uncertainty about how that thing is now going to be negotiated. But in leaving Christianity, there's this bigger culture, this bigger conversation, this bigger dynamic that is happening in the world that's much bigger than me and my friends when it comes to atheists and Christians. And the current climate of that, I don't know what you'd call it, that conversation dynamic that's happening right now is fairly combative. It's very argumentative. You have, as I was describing to my friend as I was talking to her last night, you have the atheists out there kind of like throwing this huge fit about religion to the point of practically calling it a disease in some sense, in like the sense of an idea. Like the idea of religion like causes problems and it's like pathological to human functioning and well-being, and that somehow it's like this deeply immoral, horrible thing that we need to get rid of. And at the same time, ironically, of course, Christians have that exact same attitude back toward the atheists, where the Christians have the attitude that atheism is like a disease, spiritually and emotionally, and that human beings can't flourish and fulfill their purpose if there isn't religion and there isn't God to provide morals and a framework for meaning in our lives. And so you just have like the two groups that are just kind of going at it, and they're just out to completely take down the other side. They want it removed from the world. The atheists want religion gone, and the religious people want the atheists gone. And regardless of who is or isn't right about their claim, the fact of the matter is that human beings do experience their lives emotionally a lot more than they experience them with regards to what's true and not true. And it's more how people feel about what it is that they believe than it really is necessarily about what they believe. And I don't mean to say that to dismiss the importance of critical thinking and finding what's actually true about the world in the slightest. I am super concerned about making truthful claims and teaching truthful things about the world. But I think what's being missed is that human beings, the reason that empathy and listening is so important is because if a human being feels safe and they feel like they're talking to somebody or engaging with somebody who has their interest in mind or who cares about them and cares about their well-being, then they tend to take on a more curious attitude and a more explorative attitude when it comes to considering new thoughts or opinions or trying to understand themselves and what they're feeling and experiencing. But when a human being is in a setting where they don't feel safe and where they feel threatened and where they feel like who they are is being attacked, like their personal identity, or their ability to do things is being attacked, or their ability to think critically is being attacked. When somebody feels unsafe, when they feel like they're engaging or talking to somebody who doesn't have their best interest in mind, then they kind of set down where they are, and they aren't going to want to move. They're going to become extremely stubborn and extremely combative. And due to that, regardless of who's right, whether it's the Christians or the atheists, or any of the other people out there who have certain opinions about things, the reality is that if you think that the idea that you have is the correct one, and your hope is to pass on that idea to other people and to help them to understand how what you think is correct, you can't do that if you make the people you're trying to pass the idea on to feel threatened. It's going to be exponentially more difficult to change anybody's mind about anything if they feel unsafe. And you'd be surprised how even the most stubborn people will start to open up in the presence of people who they like and people who they feel like they can trust and who have their interest in mind. So I'm kind of realizing this, I had a lot of the pieces to this already in my mind, but just within my own life, I hate fighting with people, and it's been extremely frustrating within the last year, feeling like I'm at odds with my friends who are Christian or people in my life who are Christian. And this kind of all came to a head within the last few weeks when at my new job, some conversations started coming up about faith because everybody there, for the most part, are Christian, especially, or more specifically, the bosses are Christian, and my friend who got me the job at this place is a Christian. And so they're the ones I talk to the most, and I was just getting really frustrated because I've been less concerned about whether the claim of Christianity or atheism is the truthful one. What I get extremely frustrated with is that if we start to talk about it, it becomes this argument and becomes a debate, and it becomes about trying to prove the other person wrong. And anytime that happens, at the end of it, I just feel really horrible. And I feel like everybody kind of walks away feeling really horrible. And I hate that, because I care a lot about how people feel. And I care a lot more about how people feel than I do about who's right. And so that really got me thinking. And I was trying to think of a way to bypass that, because I was like, when the topic of faith is not the topic, I get along really great with these people. So I was trying to figure out how I could still get along with them in a setting where we're having a conversation about faith. And so I kind of came up with this thing, and it worked incredibly well, and it's empathy based. And I'm so excited about it. And the core idea is essentially that it's really hard for people to get frustrated and angry at people that they're empathizing with. So if you start a conversation with empathy, and like before you even start talking about like facts and claims and stuff, but you talk about the feelings behind them, then it makes it extremely difficult for people to get combative. So it's really easy if you walk into a room and you're a Christian and somebody's an atheist, and then to just like start talking intellectually about whether one or the other is true, and then it turns into an argument. But the reality is that it turning into an argument is an indication that there's something very emotional going on. It's not about the facts, it's about feelings, it's about identity. In which case, having a factual discussion isn't happening anymore, and what's being said is completely, utterly useless, because nobody's there to change their mind. Everybody's there to emotionally get somewhere. So, to bypass that, or to prevent that from happening, what you have to do is you have to establish that there's going to be a collaborative effort rather than a fight. So it's like, if you can establish that the two of you are friends and that you would like to work together to try to come to an understanding about how the world works, that's a very different picture than seeing the other person as your teammate rather than seeing the other person as the enemy is going to have a profound difference in the conversation. And to be able to see them as your teammate, you have to have some level of like trust with that person and understanding of that person to be like, I think that this person is trying to understand what's true. And if you don't believe that about the other person, then why are you even talking to them? The only reason you would have for talking to somebody is because you think that they might actually be willing to change their mind. So, and if you think that they might be willing to change their mind, then work with them as a teammate to try to help them increase their understanding of the world, if that's what they're trying to do. And you have to be able to do the same, where you allow them to come alongside you to help you understand how they're thinking and how they came to their conclusions. And if you see it as this collaborative effort to try to understand each other's life experiences and the thoughts and understandings that you have that have laid the path and the groundwork for how you got where you are, then there's no enemy to attack. There's only understanding them and them understanding you, and then putting your heads together and being like, is it possible for us to reconcile these? Is there a way for us to come to a common understanding? And it's okay if we don't, but like, we both did our best. So, yeah. I'm like, this idea is so extremely exciting for me that like, it's incredible. And I talked with one of my friends about this last night, and I felt amazing after the conversation. There were definitely a few awkward moments, and I think that there's still parts of it I'm going to have to work on. It's so incredibly hard to not immediately want to be combative when this stuff comes up. But I'm incredibly excited to start learning and practicing being a lot more empathetically driven. Specifically in the context of having conversations about faith and atheism and truth and science and philosophy and psychology. So, yeah. And I have tons of ideas with regards to like how to create that among people. It's like, it's one thing for me with one of my friends and we know each other really well. It's maybe a little bit easier for me to draw empathy. But, I mean, I would even say with my boss yesterday after work, before getting home to talk to my friend, I sat down and talked to him for an hour and a half. And I basically gave him my life story framed around things that he could relate to. And that made it almost impossible for him to invalidate anything that I said. It was incredible. Like, man, because, like, nobody's going to invalidate their own feelings. So if you can draw a sense of empathy by taking an example that they are familiar with, that they feel emotionally, and connecting it to the way that you feel, then they're going to have a really hard time invalidating that. And that's very powerful. And that's a really good thing. It's not manipulation. It's like, that's how human beings work best, is when we're empathizing with each other. And if you start by asking for empathy and inviting the person to empathize with you by connecting your emotional experiences to their emotional experiences, then once you start having factual conversations, it's going to be a lot harder for it to devolve into an argument, because suddenly they have feelings for you and they're going to be a lot more sensitive to whether what they're saying is being hurtful to you or not. Because that's where empathy comes from. That's why empathy is so powerful. Oh my goodness. Because it's like, if you see somebody as like an enemy or the bad guy, it's like, it's okay if bad guys get hurt. Like, if you think of movies and war, like, generally the theme is that, like, it's okay if the bad guys die. It's okay if the bad guys get hurt because they deserve it. And that attitude, like, takes away empathy. So if you humanize yourself to the other person before a conversation starts, they have to empathize with you much more strongly. So if you can give them examples of emotional experiences you've had that they can relate to, and yeah, and I'm kind of repeating myself, I guess, at this point, but yeah, it's an incredible strategy. Empathy for the win, man. Empathy is so much more powerful than just trying to, like, beat somebody over the head and convince them that something is true. And at the end of the day, the fact is that if you're using empathy, you're also going to have to empathize with them, which means you also have to concede to the fact that they are trying and that they're a human being, and that it's possible for them to come to a different conclusion than you. And you have to learn to be okay with that, which is another thing that I'm having to learn that's fairly difficult. But, like, I'm super, super obsessed with, like, truth and knowledge and understanding and wisdom. And there's a level of me that just gets, like, agitated when something's, like, out of place with regards to, like, truth or knowledge. But that's something I can come to peace to, and something I'm going to have to come to peace to. Because once I start empathizing with my friends, I mean, yeah, I can use empathy as a power that way too, where it's like, if I can think of my friends empathetically, and I can think of times when I've felt the way that they do, then it makes it way easier for me to be like, you know, it's okay that they believe something different than me. Like, they're doing the best that they know how. They're thinking critically about the world to the best of their ability and coming to their own conclusions. And if they come to conclusions that I don't like or that I don't agree with, that's okay. Like, I give them permission to do that, rather than trying to force them to change their mind or convince them to change their mind. What I want to do from now on, and this is what I said to my friend last night, is it's like, I want to be inviting to them, to be like, hey, like, you don't have to question anything that you believe about the world to be my friend. Like, if you never want to talk about this with me because you have your beliefs and understandings of the world and you want to hold on to those and you don't want to change them, or you at least don't want to open up to me about what might change them, like, that's completely fine. I don't need you to reconsider what you think about the world to be my friend. But if you ever want to have a discussion with me about the journey that I took and what's going on inside of my brain that led me to be convinced that Christianity isn't actually true, then, like, I would love to sit down and talk about it with you and do my best to understand where you're at right now and how what I've gone through and what my experiences could teach you about the way that you're experiencing your life, and maybe through you understanding me, you will come to a different understanding. But then also maybe you don't. And again, that's completely fine if you don't, because like, I believe that you're doing the best that you know how, and I'm your friend because you're an incredibly empathetic human being. That would apply, like I could literally say that to almost any of my close friends. All of them are incredibly empathetic people, and that's what I love about them. They will sit and listen to me when I'm in a really tough spot. And you know, even last night after my friend left, I was thinking about how I know that in like 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, if I'm out traveling all over the world having conversations or like debates, and I'm starting businesses or organizations and stuff, and I get into a spot and I'm just super stressed out and I don't know what to do and I don't know who to turn to, I know that like without a doubt I would be able to call Benji or Anna or Hostine or Patty, in any four of them. Like I could call them in a point of crisis at any point in my life and they would drop what they're doing and they would listen to me, and I would be able to trust that they care about how I'm doing and how I feel. And I am incredibly grateful for that. And yeah. So regardless of what it is that they believe about the world, regardless of whether they agree with me or not, like, I don't care. Like, I want to spend my life trying to move people away from religion, because I am of the opinion that it's not true, and that for human beings to be healthy, or even more specifically for human beings to get along with each other so that they can be healthy with each other, there will need to be something different. Like, that's what I think, but like, it's okay that they don't think that. I'm going to be out in the world trying to make that happen, but I don't need them to be out in the world trying to make that happen. And even if they were doing something that was in opposition to me, or there are times when for ethical or like for personal moral reasons for them, they don't necessarily want to come behind something I'm doing, that's completely fine. I am not friends with them because I expect them to always think that anything that I ever say or do is completely okay. I'm their friends because I trust that they care about me, and that in any given situation, if I ask them what they think, they will be honest with me, and I can trust that in their honesty, they're looking out for me more than anything. And having somebody who's looking out for me matters a lot more to me than having somebody who agrees with me. So I think that's all. I think that's good for now. And then now I want to make my more official video, which is going to be very similar to this. Maybe talking about this ahead of time will help me be in the right mental space. But yeah, I'm super excited for starting a whole YouTube channel around these ideas, and I'm really excited just for my life in general. I love my life right now. So thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching the video. If you really like what I'm talking about right now, and you're in support of spreading empathy and peace in the world, and seeing empathy as a means to creating peace, those are things that you value and things that you love, then subscribe to the channel. I'm hopefully going to be coming out with... No, not hopefully. Don't say that, Nehemiah. I'm going to be coming out with a lot of videos in the next year, which are going to be all around this and about the human experience and what it means to be human and the things that we feel and think. So yeah, definitely subscribe if you find that interesting, because you'll definitely want to watch a lot of my videos in the future. And regardless of whether you subscribe or not, definitely feel free to like the video and also leave a comment, and those things are going to help me get more content out, as I'm able to hopefully eventually transition over into doing YouTube stuff as a career, rather than just spending 40 hours a week doing something else. So thanks for the support. If you like or comment, and I hope you have a wonderful day or night or morning, regardless of when you're watching this. And I'll catch you later.